I'm Dietmar Winske. I'm the owner of Inomed Africa. We are based in Somerset West, and we are the sole importers of Bemer Professional and Bemer Classic and the Bemer Vet. We're in this business for about 12 years already. My background is aeronautical engineering, and I'm very much a technical man, but in the 12 years I've learned a number of things. I'll never become a medical doctor, of course, but I've learned a few things on physiology, biology, and of course I think my physics I know quite well. But that is not all that important for now. One more thing, if you see that the slides come up very slowly, if my speech sounds slurred, it is not that I'm having alcohol on the side here, but it is that the internet can sometimes be very slow. It can be inconsistent in a way, it gets a bit wobbly, and then these things happen. It is usually your end of the connection that is a little bit dicey, but it could also be mine, of course. Okay, let's start then. Let me just get rid of this little side panel that I've got here. Once again, welcome to everybody, and we're going to talk about the Bemer Professional. Okay, before we start on the actual device, I just want to give you a couple of basics of Bemer regulation therapy because I think it is important. For those of you who've listened to the Bemer Classic webinar the other night, it is very similar in terms of the basics, so bear with me or just listen to it again. The most wonderful thing about our bodies, and in fact all animal bodies too, is that there are four very high level characteristics of our bodies. And the first one is that this body of ours is completely self-regulating. And what I mean by that is that our blood pressure, our cholesterol levels, our surface temperature of the skin, all these things and all the chemistry, the enormous chemistry that is going on in our bodies is completely self-regulating. It is not something that you and I do consciously, and it is amazing that it actually works for all these years that it does. It is also very networked in the sense that you cannot just change one little parameter in the body and hope that it all comes right. We are very networked, very interconnected in terms of all the organs and the blood vessels and everything that's going on in there. And it is networked in the sense that it is integrated. The other word that is often used is holistic, which is not very much favored amongst the medical profession because it sounds a little bit esoteric, but it isn't really. Holistic just means integrated thinking. The body is also an optimizing system in that it tries to keep us healthy, tries to keep us in top shape, in top vitality and mental and physical performance. It is really, as you will see a little later, our lifestyles that prevent this body of being in an optimum state continuously. And then of course the most amazing thing is that this body of ours has built into it everything it needs for self-healing. And I say this with respect to the medical profession, but they're not healing anything really. Nobody is healing anything, not the Bemer either, but in the end we're all trying various means and modalities to assist the body to heal itself because it is a built-in characteristic. Now, this Bemer machine, on what principle does it achieve its remarkable effectiveness? It's really very fundamental. It's very basic, but it is quite profound too. And a principle, as usual, is always easy, but the devil is in the detail. And that's why I have to give you one or two things here quickly. But it is very complex. It's a little bit like a cell phone. The complexity inside a cell phone and what happens in the interaction with these infamous cell towers and the service provider is mind-boggling, but you don't have to understand all that to be able to make a call. And it's a little bit like the Bemer. The Bemer is a device which, through particular characteristics, makes it possible that the body can derive some additional energy to assist in the self-healing processes. I will explain that in a moment. But you don't have to know all those complex issues to be able to use it. Now, if you think about it, our body is really a very sophisticated body. It consists of an organized conglomerate of 100 million cells. These cells are subdivided into 200 different types with different functions. All it needs to live is oxygen and nutrients, and it needs some other transportation mechanism to get the oxygen and nutrients there and to remove the waste products like CO2 and toxins and so on. And that is what the circulatory system of the blood is meant to do. That's why we've got a heart that pumps, and we've got lungs that actually accept the oxygen and gas form and exhale the CO2 and other things as well. The chemistry is rather mind-boggling, and I don't want to bore you now, but everything in this human body of ours is packed, the intelligence of it is packed into these tiny little cells, and it's got the complete building program for you and every single cell in there. And out of 20 different types of amino acids which get sort of sequenced in a certain fashion, it can build more than 250,000 proteins and all sorts of other things. And that is really the column, or rather the basics on which this body is running at biochemistry level. Now, the cell is very, very small, but inside there are factories, power stations, and so on. And these power stations, these tiny little yellow things that you might or might not be able to discern in this webinar, these mitochondria are actually like power stations of Eskom, except they work all the time. And these power stations produce ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, and by producing ATP, all these chemical things can be done in the cell. ATP is really the chemical energy, like petrol is the chemical energy to make a car go forward. The ATP is the chemical energy to let the cells do what they have to do, converting glucose into energy and so on. This biological energy then is used to do this complicated chemistry, and it is all part of a self-regulation system. If you're not into biology, then this is maybe the first time you've even ever heard of this. You don't have to remember anything. We're not going to write any tests. But I just want to point this out to you. Our bodies are really one big tract from the mouth to the other end, and we've got inside there 2 half brains, joints, heart, lungs, legs, toes, arms, fingers, skin, organs, etc. And the blood, and they all consist of cells, and the blood supply has to reach them all. And this blood circulation is thus highly significant. In fact, it is critical for the maintenance of cell biology. If you stop the blood circulation, especially right down into the microcirculation, which are the tiny little blood vessels ending in the capillaries where the actual exchange for the cells is taking place, then if that doesn't work, we have a real problem. Now, illness conditions are almost always problems at cellular level. These are things that even medical science and even medical practitioners that start up at university get taught more and more. The research in medicine is focusing more and more at cellular level because it is slowly recognized that the symptoms are one thing, but long before the symptoms are there, at cellular level, all sorts of things have happened. And the things happen at cellular level, undefined at this stage, that cause ATP shortage, and what that means is that metabolic dysfunction, in other words, the metabolism of the cells is not working well, and in the end all sorts of illness conditions appear. Now, This transport of nutrients, oxygen, and the transporting away of waste is done, as I mentioned already, through the heart and arteries, the veins, collect the waste and bring it back to the lungs. These hearts and the arteries, branch off into arterioles and venoles, which are really the smaller veins, and these again in turn are connected with capillaries, as this rather childlike drawing shows, or is attempting to draw. Now you must know that these small blood vessels make up 75% of all your blood vessels, and this may be a surprise to you. 120,000 kilometers of it are sitting in your body. Yes, there is not a 0 or 2 too many. It is 120,000 kilometers of blood vessel, 75% of which are smaller in diameter than 1/5 of a millimeter. That is where traditionally microcirculation is defined to start. The interaction, all chemical processes take place at the capillary level. This is where the interaction of the oxygen, the nutrients, and so on with the cell takes place. So that has to work. That is all I'm trying to say for the moment. Now, unfortunately, we mess it up a little bit. Our lifestyle is very stressful. If you live in cities and so on, it is difficult with the traffic, with the job, with the children, with the family, with all sorts of issues that impinge on us. We get stressed. And what does stress mean? Stress means constriction of blood vessels. What does constriction of blood vessels imply? It implies less blood flow, less oxygen. Less oxygen at cellular level means higher acidity, which is really hydrogen ions that float around, but don't worry about that. Let's just call it acidity. And the acidity gradually destroys the cell metabolism, which means, really, in ordinary words, the cells are not able to do the work they're meant to do. And the result of that all is chronic ailments. Now, the causes of these chronic ailments, or any of our symptoms that we have that we call ill health, is really very basic. It is lack of regular exercise. Why would that be important? Well, oxygen is one of the 2 main ingredients for the circulatory system to transport. And if we don't do regular exercise, 2 things happen. The capillaries near the lungs, where this interchange takes place from the oxygen into the bloodstream, isn't working because we're not breathing deeply anymore. And the other thing is that with exercise, we learn again how to breathe properly. The breathing habits of all of us, myself included, are really pretty poor. Or that's what the medical people who specialize in these things say. Some people augment that with smoking, and it gets worse and worse in that sense. The psychological stress, as I said already, with spouses, with children, with schools, with traffic, the employer, the employee, whatever it might be, it gives psychological stress, and that causes narrowing of the blood vessels. Environmental stress really refers to the stress the body experiences from poor quality water, poor quality air that we're breathing, etc. And then, of course, on top of all this comes that we do not really feed ourselves well. Besides the oxygen, remember, we need nutrients. And these nutrients come from balanced meals. And a balanced meal is not a Coke Light and a Bar One. A balanced meal consists of many, many components where we have to be careful what we imbibe and what we should rather leave out. Now here again, I'm not preaching to you like a self-righteous person. I do the same things. I eat the same junk food occasionally. It is just that we have to be a little bit more conscious of these things, because what we put into this gaping hole in the middle of our face is very important for the rest of the body, how it should function. And the common factor, of course, is lifestyle. Poor lifestyle gives us poor circulation and lack of oxygen. And so, if I can just put this in the circular diagram, it's very simple. If you want health, vitality, and performance, you want this body to fix whatever has to be fixed, keep you at an even keel, keep your vitality high, your performance high, and so on. For that, it needs to stimulate the microcirculation. Remember, that is that 75% of all the blood vessels that are smaller than 1/5 of a millimeter in diameter, and then getting the essential supply and removal mechanism for the cells sorted out. Now, the essential supply is oxygen and nutrients, and the removal mechanisms are toxins and waste, etc. If that is working, then the improved energy production at cellular level is working, and if that is working, all the chemistry is working better, which we call greater biological effectiveness. When all the cells are doing what they're meant to do, and they have enough energy to do it, then your regulation processes in the body normally work very well. So when trains are running properly and are properly regulated, then we assume there's enough energy to get them there, there's enough water, infrastructure, maintenance is correct, etc., all these things. Then the properly functioning regulation process can kick in, and when that happens, the self-healing effect also works. I'm sure you can understand that quite easily. So now we can go to the actual machine. The Bemer Professional is really two Bemer classics in one. It is definitely a world leader. It is not with the slightest imagination comparable to any other pulsed electromagnetic field therapy device. And if there are some websites, as you have no doubt noticed already, that say, read this before you buy a Bemer, that is just a cheap rip-off. It's a marketing trick, because in the end they're selling their product. That's really what they want. But I find it astonishing that they pick only on the Bemer, and they pick only on the Bemer simply because the Bemer is the best in its class. It is absolutely the only device of this sort with genuine, scientifically and clinically based research. It is the only device that works consistently, where research has been done, papers have been written, but of course not so many, and that is only because the Bemer itself is only 12 years old. We can say that this Bemer, as it looks here, is third generation Bemer, and I call it physiological regulation therapy. In Europe they call it physical regulation therapy, and that will also work. I just thought that physiological is maybe a better term. But we're not splitting hairs here, we are just looking at what does the Bemer actually do. And before we get into it, if you acquire a Bemer Professional, then you get this control box, which is quite a sophisticated computer inside. That is the B-Box Professional, as we call it. The main ingredient there, or not ingredient, the main accessory is really this B body mat, which you fold out. You see it's folded here a little bit, but you make it flat and you lie on it. We have a B spot. Oh, by the way, this mat therapy is of course the basic therapy. The B spot and the B light and the B pad are really additional accessories that would help you to address, let's call it a hotspot on your body or in your body, or a surface effect on the skin that you want to treat with the Bemer light, or the B pad, which is really just a couple of B spots in a row, and they are very helpful if you have larger areas in the body that you want to treat. However, please remember, whatever I say in the next few minutes is that this Bemer mat is the basic therapy. You can do without these other three, but the Bemer therapy is the main thing. This all comes together with the B-Box Professional, and that makes up the Bemer Professional system. But it is only one B body, but you can connect two independently operated B bodies to this box. Let's have a look at this machine. Some of you may have it already, so some of it will be familiar. But first of all, it comes flat, and by just pushing your thumbs on these two corners simultaneously and pushing it slightly to the back, this will stand up slightly, and it is solid enough so that you can press buttons on the touch screen here with reasonable force, and it will stay upright. Okay, so it's got a nice soft touch tilt mechanism. It has on its, as we're looking at it here from the face, on the right hand side we have two magnetic ports. We had some problems with the magnets falling out, you may recall, but those problems are all solved now. It shouldn't be a problem at all anymore. In the back you have that tester that makes the noise when you hold it over an active mat. The moment you switch off the mat, the noise stops. Now this B-scan is really just a little gadget that audibly lets you hear if the magnetic field is being generated in the mat or in the B spot or in the B pan. It includes a novelty, a big novelty, and that is the special sleep program with sleep phases. I will get to that in a moment. Here is the B scan. As I mentioned already, you just tilt it slightly. It is rotated around these two high points inside here, but they're very easy to disengage and slot back into its space. You don't really need it very often. It is just if you have the feeling that maybe there's nothing coming out of this mat, switch on or activate the mat and then hold the B scan with your finger on this white button here, and then you will hear that there is something coming out of the mat in terms of electromagnetic energy. The magnetic ports are already pointed out to you. It's a very nice little snap lock, and if you should pull on the wires by accident, they easily release and you don't put damage or loading damage onto the cable. Works very well. The basic treatment, as I said, is always the mat. Here it is unrolled. What is important here, that the head end, in other words the end where your head is lying, is where the Bemer logo is, while the B body at the bottom, in your case it says B body professional, would be where the foot end is. Now it is important where the head end is and where the foot end is, but it is not important if you're lying on this side or if you turn around and you lie on the other side. That is not important. But important is the head end and the foot end is different. It's a slight difference, but an important difference in terms of the bulk of your body is at the top here with your torso, while at the bottom here you have mainly the legs. Okay, the touch screen is very neat, works very well. This is the startup touch screen, and I will go into the detail of this in a moment. The important thing here is there is one big switch, and that is a press button that you either switch the machine on, or if it is on and you want to switch it off, you switch it off. That's the only other button to switch on. The rest is all done over the touch screen. The two magnetic ports are for either a single mat or two mats or a mat and a special applicator, and the nice thing is you can run two mats at the same time and operate them completely with different programs. That is very useful. And of course, if there is a part that I run over very quickly maybe and you've got questions, if we have time at the end you can ask questions, but otherwise just send me an email, or you can also read the manual. The manual, I think, is written quite well. The other thing I just want to point out to you is the Bemer Classic and the Bemer Professional makes use of the same high-tech rechargeable battery. We've got lots of them available because I was under the impression when I saw this first, it is wonderful to have this box independent of ESCOM, especially when you are in an area where there are a lot of load shedding. So if the lights are not working, it's great to have a battery, and this battery will last for a long time, about 50 treatments at least. And it is the type of battery that you would use also on a cellular phone or on a laptop and so on. Now, just when you look at this touch screen, you have this purple color here, which is the 10 levels that we're all used to on the older Bemers, but it is the 10 levels that are mainly used on the B body mat. Then here we have the 9 individually programmable programs and 3 defined programs. In the Classic we have only 3 defined programs, P1, P2, P3. The nice thing here is you can make up your own program and put it into memory, and you and your spouse or your partner can have a completely different program, and you just choose it. And those are the 9 that start on P4, P5, P6, etc. This is the symbol for the sleep mode, the special dynamic program for sleeping. It also has a timer function and an alarm function. And then this red one here is the light program for the B light applicator when you have skin conditions, wounds, etc. and even sunburns and lots of other things. So when you press this button on the touch screen, then immediately this screen comes up where you choose the level you want to treat yourself at. You do that. It shows a little bit level 6 for so many minutes, for 8 minutes, and it has a little picture here to show you are connected to the B body at level 6 when you press start. Okay? And there is a port A1 and A2. Here it tells you it is on A1. You could also switch it through to the other port. So you've got 2 possibilities of programming the mats for the 2 partners or spouses. The P programs, as I said, if you press the program button on the touch screen, then it will come up P1, P2, P3. You choose which one you want to use, or you individually program 4 to 8. Actually, it's 4 to 12. What this indicates is you can still program 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, but 9, 10, 11, and 12, maybe your wife or husband has already programmed. Okay? Then it shows you when you've chosen whatever level, say this is level P2, then it shows you that for the first 2 minutes you get level 1, for the next couple of minutes you get level so-and-so, then level this, level that, and after 12 minutes you finish off with a level 5. Okay. You could have put something together like this. Again, you have a start button there on the right. You must play a little bit around. You can do nothing wrong with it. You can play a little bit. Learning the logic of this, I'd be surprised if it takes you longer than 15 minutes. In the sleep program, you decide that evening on the basis if you're A1 or A2, because you may want to go to bed at 11 o'clock and get up at 6, while your spouse may want to get to bed at 10 o'clock and get up only at 8. So you decide when you want to wake up. This has to be between a minimum of 6 hours and a maximum of, I think it is 10 hours. If it is over that, the numbers appear in red, and then you must know you cannot do that. To switch it and you need these adjustment of the time control up and down. Again, it's very logic. You go from the 7 to this one by clicking this side or clicking that side, and then putting the numbers up, you go from 7 to 8 to 9 to 10. Clicking them down, you go from 10 to 9 to 8 to 7. Okay, if you're happy with your time, you say okay, and then you have this picture, I would say, that is really more a public relations thing than anything else. It doesn't really tell you much other than you're lying on the mat, and in the sleep program there are certain sleep levels that will appear while you're asleep. This machine is active the whole time. When I say active, it doesn't always send a magnetic field, but it is active. And this last one is the light. Now, the light is always the same intensity. It is, if it was the classic, it would be level 10. But here you can adjust it for 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes, or 8 minutes. And we usually start slowly. The first 1 or 2 times you use the B light, you would use it on a short duration, 2 minutes. After that, maybe for 4 minutes. The third time you use it for 6 minutes, and then eventually for 8 minutes, and you use it on 8 minutes all the time. Now you must know this reddish light that comes out of the B light is not infrared. It is red, yes. It is of a wavelength of 660 nanometers, not important, but it was found that that wavelength is the most beneficial for the cells who react to the electromagnetic radiation of light at 660 nanometers. That sleep program was developed because Dr. Rainer Klopp, who is the chief of the Institute for Microcirculation at the Charité Clinic in Berlin, at the University Clinic, he discovered that your microcirculation and my microcirculation is very different when we sleep to when we are awake and active. When we are awake and active, the blood is channeled to muscle tissue, to your brain, to your digestive organs, etc. When you are sleeping, that is the only chance the body has to regenerate the internal organs like the kidneys, the spleen, the liver, etc. And that is what happens. And if you find on the sleep program that maybe initially, when you use it at the beginning, it is a little bit unusual for you, you may have to get up once or twice at night, because what happens is the refurbishing and regeneration of your kidneys, for example, will cause more urine to form, and the detoxification, the waste product extraction and actually expulsion at cellular level has increased because of this program. And it may be that you would have to go to the bathroom maybe once at night, but that will gradually become a normalization as the body is getting used to the sleep program. So just bear with it. If you wake up in the middle of the night, you've got to go to the bathroom. There's nothing wrong with a machine or doing you any harm. It is really just your body reacting to this improvement in the functioning of the internal organs. There are also a couple of settings. You better read the manual for that, but it is a little bit like a cell phone. If you can operate a Nokia cell phone and go through the various options that you got on there, it's very much like this. And it's pretty self-explanatory. This one is to increase or decrease the loudness of the little beep beeps that you hear, the brightness of the display, the time that you have to adjust just once, so that this machine knows what time it is, so that if you type in you want to wake up at 7:15 the next morning, that this box actually knows what the standard time is at the moment. So there are a couple of things that you can calibrate and adjust, and one of them is also this one here, so that you can define your own programs. You can say, okay, I want to have a level 10, a level 2, a level 3, and a level 10 again, and that is going to be my program P11. And your spouse may have another one. Your spouse might say, you know, I would like a level 3, then I want a P1, and then I want a level 10, and then that's that. And I call that P12 or P8 or 9 or whatever. But as you go through this, it is very much like going through the setting menu of a Nokia telephone. Very much the same. Again, you can save. Once you've defined your levels, you save it under the button that you've chosen. Not difficult, but you've got to try it a little bit. So I already mentioned the time being very important. Here you can see on the slide what I've said earlier on, the time difference between the actual time at the moment and the wake-up time you want to put in there has got to be more than 6 and less than 10 hours. Okay, you can use 2 mats simultaneously with each individual program, and that is wonderful, especially compared to the old Bemer 3000. So that works ideal for a couple, partners, etc. In a double bed, you've got 2 of these mats. Each one has their own program. And even if I'm already sleeping and my mat is active already with the programs that I inputted, then my spouse can come and choose her programs independent of where I am at the moment, even the sleep program. And that is just very wonderful. Works very well. The nice thing is this mat, you can arrange it somewhere in your lounge, in your bed, even in a hospital. You can put it on the hospital bed. You can lie outside in the garden, but then you definitely need the battery to make you independent of the mains. And I tell you, it is wonderful. If you have a recliner, maybe the Bemer recliner, maybe some other recliner that you're putting this Bemer mat on, it is wonderful to have a battery, and we're using it all the time. Here is the power recliner. The inside of this mat, it's got a zip here all around, and you can take what we call the inner out. Then the wire usually comes out at the top, so you know always where the top end is, even if you don't see a Bemer logo. You put it inside this recliner, which is, I think, a very smart recliner that we designed in Inomed Africa. We think it is stylish. It comes in leather or synthetic leather, and we have lots of colors. The only drawback is sometimes if you have a color that we do not have readily available at the office, then you would have to wait until they make a lot of chairs. By a lot, I don't mean lots of them. I mean we have to order in lots of 4. So whenever you order one with a color, let's say green and pink stripes, then unfortunately we'll have to specially order that, and we'll have to order another 3 chairs at the same time. Oh yes, what I forgot to mention is that this box, especially with a battery, again, fits into this little drawer that can be pulled out. You put the box inside there. It is connected inside this chair through a hole where the wire that comes out of the mat drops through onto this magnetic port, and Bob's your uncle. You've got a beautiful recliner that can look very smart in your lounge, especially if it is of the same leather color that your rest of the lounge is. All right. General guidelines on the, sorry, this is a misprint, the Bemer Professional Treatment, but it is exactly the same for the Bemer Classic. And the basic rule of thumb is the weaker or older the person, the lower the level will give you the best results. Let me say that again. If you want to treat, or if you are yourself a person that feels physically very weak, be that due to a debilitating ailment, be that due to just having run a marathon, be that just having come from work and having had one hang of a day, then the best thing is to go on a level 3 or lower. Level 3 or 2 or 1 will do more for you than a level 5, 6 or 7. And that is what this red curve here indicates. If you are exhausted, on average, your level 3 is probably close to the optimum treatment. An optimum means it's the best you can possibly expect from the Bemer. If you are, metabolically speaking, ready for a level 3, but you put yourself on a level 5, then your benefit is only over here somewhere. While if you treat yourself on level 3, it would be over here. But if you have just run a marathon, 90 kilometers, or are on the Cape Epic and have just done stage 5, then it is better if you go to level 1, because this whole curve is moving further to the left. If, on the other hand, you are a healthy, fit person, maybe not a top athlete, but otherwise generally fit, then the optimum treatment for you would be here round about level 5. Now, I can tell you, I'm blessed with good health generally, and maybe the Bemer had something to do with it, because the same goes for the rest of my family. When I wake up in the mornings, I use a level 5, and I feel on top of the world. In the evenings, when I had a full day and there was a lot of stress, activity, and I'm exhausted, I would use a level 3. So I flip-flop in the mornings on a level 5, in the evenings on a level 3. If I'm really exhausted, I go to a level 2, because this curve will have shifted more to the side as well. That is what these two arrows indicate. The healthier or fitter the person, the more this optimum curve point moves to the right. The weaker the person, this optimum point moves to the left. I hope I didn't lose you. Just remember it this way. The weaker the person, the lower the level 1, 2, or 3. The higher, the fitter and healthier the person, 5, 6, 7, that'll be fine. If you're a top athlete, then levels 8, 9, and 10 are excellent for you before you do your high performance exercise, competition, or whatever. Okay, that is the basic rule to remember. Now, here with this graph, I just wanted to illustrate, if on the vertical axis we want to improve something that the Bemer happens to improve, and I get to those parameters a bit later, then if you were always on the optimum level over a couple of weeks, you would reach that top shape place very quickly. But if you were to use the non-optimum level, and it doesn't matter if it's on the old Bemer 3000 or the new generation one, you would still get there. It would just take longer. That is the major difference. So we cannot assess our metabolic balance point at cellular level. Very few doctors can. You need very special equipment to do it. But that is why the rule of thumb works very well. The lower, the weaker the person feels, yes, subjectively, the lower the level to treat yourself with, and you will be closer to this line. And the stronger you are, the fitter you are, the healthier you are, you can use the higher levels, and you will again stick very close to the optimum levels and have a shorter recuperation from an injury, or for whatever reason you're treating yourself. And maintenance, of course, as well. Okay, when you're treating yourself or others, make sure that you are in a reasonably quiet environment, that you avoid stress during treatment. So don't be on the phone or watch CNN with all sorts of turmoil, earthquakes, and nuclear fallout and so on. That just stresses you. Be in a comfortable position. Loosen your clothing. You can be fully dressed on the Bemer, but just release your belts so that you can freely breathe also, and so on. Don't smoke until at least 3 hours after you Bemered yourself, and drink no coffee or alcohol before treatment for at least 3 hours. So if you go on the Bemer every 3 hours during the day, then I tell you what, you will abstain from smoking very quickly, and you won't have time or the opportunity to drink coffee or alcohol, because you can't do that according to this little bullet point here. It's very important to drink water, because our body consists of about 67% water, and water is the universal solvent for all the chemicals, for all the nutrients, the oxygen and everything Blood consists of water as well. So water is important. Our recommendation is that you drink a tall glass of water before every treatment, and when you come off the Bemer, you do it again. It is just good practice. It will also improve the performance that you will get out of the Bemer. And coffee is not water, and neither is beer. We're talking real H2O. Proper eating habits, of course, important, proper breathing habits, and regular exercise. Contraindications, that is universal for all the Bemers, for all the years already. If you just had a transplant, be that liver, kidney, or something else, then don't use the Bemer at all, because you get medicine that suppresses the immune system, and the Bemer actually improves the effectiveness of the immune system. However, a transplant such as a cornea or a heart valve that is from dead tissue or metal or plastic, you don't have to worry about that. But organic transplants, definitely. There are also ethical treatment aspects, especially if you treat other people for money. Then you have to be very careful, or rather be circumspect. That's the word I would like to use. Because with a Bemer you can do almost nothing wrong. Really, there are no negative side effects, and the contraindications are very few. It's transplants, and there's one more that I forgot, and that is aneurysms of the 4th degree. You shouldn't treat. But for all the rest, you can. However, don't try and diagnose the condition of the person you want to treat. If the person knows what they've got, then I would say stay away from serious heart conditions. The problem is not that the Bemer would aggravate anything that this person that suffers cardiac problems, the Bemer does not aggravate that. However, if anything goes wrong with that person, on or off the mat, there will always be that lingering suspicion if it wasn't the Bemer. Now, while we know it wasn't the Bemer, and in a court of law we can prove that it wasn't the Bemer, because it has all the medical accreditation for that, nevertheless, it would just cause a lot of pain and problems and doubt, and that's the last thing we want to do. The same for pregnancies. Pregnancies do sometimes go wrong. There are sometimes miscarriages, and we would not like to hear that someone was pregnant, lost the baby, and then they blame it on the Bemer. We know that the Bemer is excellent for the pregnant woman. It is excellent for the fetus development. Why? Because the microcirculation is working more effectively, and that's really what it's about. Be careful in any case always if people have high fevers. There could be lots of reasons for that, and I'm not a medical person, so I would advise a person with high fever, don't put them on the Bemer. Cardiovascular problems I already mentioned. Large aneurysms is really something that I would also stay away from. And another one is epilepsy, especially those that cannot be controlled with medication. You know, those things are really for medical science to address, and I think they struggle with some of these things themselves. Sometimes people have possible reactions. They get cramps when they're on the Bemer. Now, the Bemer doesn't initiate the cramps, but because the Bemer improves the whole circulation and the working of the cellular structure in your body, any lack of minerals now comes as a problem, becomes a problem for the body. If you don't have enough magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, calcium, whatever it might be, then the body that is trying to function optimally now will show you very quickly, hey, I don't have enough of this stuff to do my job now that my microcirculation is working again, and it might react with cramps. Skin reactions, often, because the Bemer tends to help the body to detoxify, but if there isn't enough water ingested, then the toxins come through the skin, because that is the only other way they can leave the body. Some people report that the Bemer actually increases some pains, and the reason is simple. your nerves are themselves, consisting themselves of cells. They work better. That means improved sensitivity. And what you perceive as increased pain, and rightfully so, and it is so, your pain is increased. If you can get through this pain, you can do two things actually. Carry on with the level that you're at and take the pain, and if the pain is too much for you, just lower the level. If you get the pain on level 4, but you go down to level 3 and the pain is better or less, and you go to level 2 and there is no more pain, and you don't want the pain, then treat yourself on level 2. Some people get agitated at the higher levels. It is very rare, but it does happen, and I really don't know what to advise. Go to the lower levels. That's all I can do. But most people that get agitated at any level with any treatment claim to have a high sensitivity to electronic signals and so on. And then, frankly, if the Bemer is going to affect them that way, I have no idea how they can cope in an ordinary home today. If I look around in my study, there is so much electrical stuff around that if you're sensitive to the magnetic field of the Bemer, which is extremely weak and pulsed, then I tell you, you would not survive in my study. You would not survive in most, or comfortably survive in most kitchens. There are no problems with metal implants of any type, be that stents, be that knees, hips, or plates in your bone, in your bone of the head or whatever. No problem. So the things you have to remember about the therapy with the Bemer then is it's process-based, not symptom-based. So you tell me, does the Bemer professional help with this, that, or the other? I tell you what, I don't even have to understand what you're telling me, as long as it's not one of those contraindication things, which is easy because it's transplants and aneurysms, and I would stay away from cardiac things, as I said, then you can treat anyone. And it's not that the Bemer is the wonder machine that can treat every disease. In fact, it doesn't treat any disease whatsoever. It improves the microcirculation, and by the resulting improvement of the oxygen, the cells can produce ATP. If they produce ATP, their chemistry is going lacquer, and if that chemistry is going well at cellular level in all 100 million cells at the same time, the self-regulation works and the self-healing kicks in most effectively. It improves these physiological parameters. If there's nothing wrong with you, as I said, I'm blessed with good health, and the physiological parameters that count, like partial oxygen pressure, for example, it is just top of the pops if you are on the Bemer regularly. It doesn't matter if you're old or young, if you're fit or if you're ill. Your partial oxygen pressure is one of those physiological parameters that improves, and all these parameters that we say the Bemer improves have been independently checked, independently proven, verified. It's repeatable, it's measurable first of all, it's repeatable anywhere in the world with any person, and the results will always be the same. It's a bit like a physics experiment that you did if you did anything in physics in a lab at school or whatever. You always get the same result if you have to try and measure the acceleration due to gravity, 9.81 meters per second squared. And that is proven easily anywhere with the appropriate equipment. And that is the only real claim the Bemer Professional, the Bemer Classic, and the Bemer Vet are making. It influences the whole system, our whole body, our whole organism. And in that sense, it is truly holistic. Of course, it doesn't replace modern medicine, but it would be really silly if we had a tool, a process-based tool, that can alleviate chronic ailments, which, by the way, are the most expensive part of any expenditure from a medical aid. If we had a device like that, and we do have it indeed in the Bemer, then we can alleviate suffering, expense, and ease of treatment. I mean, then it would be silly not to use it. Absolutely silly. The B-Light, I just wanted to show it to you again with these individual LEDs in there at 660 nanometers. It can be very easily put on a little strip that you can then fold around your arm, and it holds it in position. It's a very nice little thing. The same with the B-spot, which is really if I have a sore knee, if I have a sore stomach, indigestion, if I got what do you call that? Let's say migraine or a headache, then this is the tool to use. Also, you use the same strap. Works very well. And here's the B pad, which for those of you who are familiar with a mini-mat, the pad is really like the mini-mat. The mini-mat had one very elongated coil across the diagonal corners of the mini-mat, and people think because the mini-mat is almost like a square that they are missing that on the B pad. Well, the mini-mat is really a B pad with a triangular section on either side of material, which makes no contribution in the actual generation of the magnetic field. As I said, the magnetic field is also extremely weak, of the order of the Earth's magnetic field. But the nice thing of the B pad is you can wrap it around your knee, wrap it around two knees, wrap it around your neck, put it on your arm if you hurt it in some or other process or injury or whatever. So people say, but I'm healthy and I'm active. Do I need Bemer therapy? Well, if you want improved mental and physical performance and joy of life for a long time, use the Bemer. Use it for maintenance. Yes, we're all getting older, but people who are in their 50s and 60s are staying younger and younger these days, and many times even 70 and 80-year-olds are really not physically or mentally as old as just 2 generations ago, people of similar age. It is certainly the most cost-effective means of preventing sickness, of staying healthy, and improving the body's self-regulation ability. Absolutely. But for those who are sick, the Bemer is compatible with every other therapy that you can think of. So whatever you do in a hospital, whatever medication you're on, remember, medication is meant to be transported to the cells where they do what they have to do. But if your circulation isn't working properly, then it can't even get there. So the Bemer therapy supports all self-regulating parameters, and that is in the end that heals the body by improving the microcirculation and the oxygen supply, and we observe accelerated healing effects of between 40 and 60% faster than without the Bemer, especially on wounds and fractures. On bone fractures, it's an absolute marvel to watch what the Bemer can do. So if you recover from a hip operation or a knee replacement operation, the Bemer cannot fix your knee or your hip, but the Bemer can let you recover and recuperate from that surgical intervention very effectively. And hey, if there are no negative side effects and it works, then it would be a no-brainer not to use it. And by the way, at this stage, I would like to tell you, the Bemer for the last 12 years is also registered with the Department of Health as a Class 2A medical device, the same classification it has in Europe and some other countries in the world like Australia, Israel, and others, and South America, for example. And in South Africa, we also submitted the Bemer device to the Medicine Control Council. Now, that is a lot more than any of our competitors have done, especially those who always compare themselves to the Bemer and then say the Bemer is only second best. Rubbish. The Bemer is absolutely the top of all pulsed electromagnetic field therapy devices. The significance for athletes I've already alluded to a few times, but faster regeneration and healing, energy-saving warm-up. It's approved by the International Olympic Committee. It is used by the Sharks. They've got 6 Bemers now. They even take a Bemer with them when they go to New Zealand and so on, when they go on tour, and they swear by it. They have really got wonderful success because in a professional rugby team, it is important that the players recover very quickly. It's also a financial consideration how quickly players can get back on the field. So, we've come to the end. If you're not yet in the Bemer world, I tell you, it's time you do. If that be with the Bemer Professional or the Bemer Classic, that is your choice. If you're a couple, it would be really, it's a misnomer to call it the Bemer Professional, but it is really two Bemers in one. And it is wonderful how you can individually adjust your side of the bed or her or his side of the bed from this Bemer control box. It is just wonderful. Enjoy good health. Enjoy fast and speedy recovery. What could be better? And as I said, it works so well that those medical practitioners who use it, the ones that are really progressive, they say, wow, we should have discovered this much earlier. But you know, there is a time for discovery. Very often the solution comes from an unexpected corner. Here is a solution for chronic ailments that came not through pills, that came through another process. And what we need is more people that use it, that can see how effective it is, and eventually the story will also open the eyes of some practitioners who are hesitant. And I understand why they are hesitant, but a new idea always takes a long time to penetrate the profession under consideration. That is exactly the same with architects, engineers, lawyers, etc.